The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the producer and those appearing in this show and do not necessarily represent the views of DerryCam, the town of Derry, or any of its staff or affiliates. Hi, I'm Anthony Henry. Welcome back to America's Ass. We are on episode 24. It was really cold out today, really cold out yesterday. It was a pain walking to the bus, but I'm here now. I walked here. So anyway, we are here with Representative Wayne MacDonald of Londonderry. So, Representative, please take a minute to tell the audience about yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Anthony, and thanks for having me on today. I've had the privilege of representing the town of Londonderry now I'm in my second term, third year in office. I have the privilege of chairing the Health and Human Services and Elderly Affairs Committee for the House of Representatives in Concord. I have the privilege of having Representative Erica Leon from here in Derry as my vice chairman. We've worked well together. We've got a lot done, a lot of positive things for the people of New Hampshire, and looking forward to an exciting and very busy second year of our legislative term coming up in January.
Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So we'll get right into the topics. I think Israel is still the biggest topic in the world. We're probably going to be talking about it every show, even though we'll probably be getting the same answer from everyone. Just want to hear it, because Israel needs support. So, Representative, what are your initial thoughts?
Well, there's not a lot uniting our country right now, but certainly this seems to be for the most part. I was delighted that President Biden the other day asked for aid for Israel as well as the Ukraine. It's something that Republicans certainly, a concern they certainly share. And, we're certainly happy that the House of Representatives has new leadership and that they're going to be addressing this critically important issue. And, there are things that we need to unite our country, and there are things that we need to do to show our leadership in the world. And helping our allies is certainly one of them. And we have no bigger ally in the Middle East than Israel, and we need to do everything we can to help them. And it looks like we're going to do a good job at that, and that's going to be important.
So the new Speaker, Mike Johnson, recently unveiled his plan, which is to cut places in the IRS and send that over to Israel as funding. So what are your thoughts on that?
I support it. I think that it's going to be, we'll see how it fares in the House. We know the United States House is very, very factionalized right now. But the IRS doesn't need to be able to have any more power than it does, but we certainly need to do more in the international community than we have been doing. We've fallen down on that job. Again, I'm glad that President Biden has showed some improved initiatives, and we need to address that. And the IRS doesn't need to get stronger, but we need to get stronger internationally.
I completely agree. I am not a big fan of the IRS. I don't think many people in the Republican Party are.
Not too many working people are fans of the IRS, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's a good plan by the new Speaker. I've been really impressed with what Speaker Johnson has done in the week to the day he has been in office so far. What do you think of the new Speaker?
I think he's doing a great job in it, and the way he united the Republican caucus and was able to get elected after several other candidates, better known candidates, more prominent members of the Republican caucus failed to get the votes. The fact that he was able to is a credit to him. I think he presents well, certainly a young man, a very vibrant man. And, it's early on. I mean, there are going to be many challenges during his term, and certainly one, I think it's next month, or maybe I guess this month now, we're going to face another issue with a potential government shutdown, and that's where the real demonstration of his leadership will come into play. But I think he's done a great job so far. I think he's off to a great start, and I hope he continues.
I agree, and what I'll repeat from last episode, I like that he's just a regular congressman. He's not a big personality like Jim Jordan or Kevin McCarthy or Steve Scalise. He's just a regular congressman that no one has ever heard of, and he's a good leader. He's a constitutional lawyer, son of a firefighter, as Hakeem Jeffries said.
And he's a devout man, and that's important. And I certainly, I'm an elder in my church. I go to the First Presbyterian Church in Manchester, and that's an important aspect. And yes, there is a separation of church and state in this country. It's a long-held tradition, but there's got to be a balance there, and there certainly has to be a respect for for all aspects of society to include that, and certainly, for this government without any consideration of God is not not a place we want to be either.
All right, moving on to the next topic. It's going to become a big topic in the coming months. First in the nation primary in New Hampshire. So recently, the filing period closed at the Secretary of State's office. Many nationally known candidates and some not so nationally known candidates signed up. So Wayne, you've been involved in many, many presidential candidates. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I go back to my first vote in a presidential primary was for President Gerald. I'm old, I can't help it. President Gerald Ford in 1976. I also, my first vote for president was in 72 for Richard Nixon, but my first vote in a primary was in 76, and I was very active in the Reagan campaign in 80, and I've had the privilege of going to a bunch of national conventions. Always an exciting part of New Hampshire when we have our quadrennial presidential primary. It's something we're honored to do, something we do really, really well. And I'm glad that, I, as a former state Republican chairman, former national committee man, I've been honored to fight for our first in the nation status. And sometimes we've had to fight, with other states and compete on the floor of the Republican National Committee and at conventions to make sure we kept that status and in the rules. But I believe there's 24 Republicans filed, 21 Democrats. President Biden is not one of the Democrats, strangely enough. It's going to be interesting to see how that write-in campaign for him goes. But it's an exciting time. We got a lot of great candidates. I don't know if I can offer my perspective on one in particular.
Go ahead.
I'm proud to be supporting Governor Chris Christie, former Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey. No disrespect to the other candidates, but I know Governor Christie well, and I think he did a great job for New Jersey, and I know he would do a great job for this country, and I'm very honored to be supporting him.
So one of my, I guess, bucket list items for this presidential election is to try to meet as many of them as I can. I have met Christie. I've met almost all of the Republican candidates except Trump and Burgum, I think. I think those are the two I haven't. I don't think I'll ever meet Trump.
And Burgum, you may need to hurry because I don't think he's going to be in the next debate, and I'm not sure how long he's going to be in the race, but
yeah,
we'll see.
A lot of them are dropping out. Pence dropped out. That's another thing. Mike Pence, the former vice president, just dropped out. I thought he'd stay in longer, but he kind of saw the writing on the wall that he's not going to win.
Well, he's former Vice President Pence has had a distinguished career as a congressman, as a governor, and as vice president. And he's also a practical man. He understands, and I think he understands the ropes. And I think he was very eloquent and his comments were very appropriate when he said, "This is not my time," when he announced his withdrawal.
Another interesting candidate that just kind of jumped in is Representative Dean Phillips of Minnesota. He is challenging Biden for the Democratic nomination, and because the DNC is doing this whole skipping New Hampshire thing, at least as the first state, Dean Phillips has filed to run in New Hampshire, and there's a really good chance he'll win New Hampshire because Biden isn't going to run. He's doing the write-in campaign, as you said. So that's something I'm going to be watching really closely. I think it could be really interesting.
Absolutely, and it's unheard of that the incumbent president of either party is not going to be on the ballot in New Hampshire. On one level, I respect Democrats for wanting to still support him and write him in. On the other hand, I can't imagine why they would want to. They know his poll numbers are terrible. His record is terrible. If you can get them privately alone, many of them will admit he's not up to the job. Politically, he's not up to the job personally, and why they want to support him, incumbency or not, is beyond me, but I wish Mr. Phillips well. I was hoping that Bobby Kennedy, RFK Jr., would have stayed in, but obviously he's chosen a different path, so we'll see how it shakes out.
Robert Kennedy is running as an independent, for those who don't know. He switched. And going back to Biden, I think this connects with Israel, as I've made this connection on the past few shows. Israel is just another example of an international crisis that's happened under Biden. And I think his handling of international crises has really had an impact on his approval rating.
Absolutely. The United States has a responsibility to lead. People look to us as the leader of the free world, and we've been dropping the ball, and that's why a lot of these international crises have been occurring, to Anthony's point. And under President Reagan and other strong presidents over the years, we have not seen this kind of international terrorism. And whenever we did see it under a strong president like Ronald Reagan, it was met with swiftly, whether it was whether it was Gaddafi or whether it was some other terrorist leader. Students kidnapped in Grenada. There was an invasion, and it was done. President George H.W. Bush, President George W. Bush, and weak leadership encourages the kinds of things we saw in Israel. I'm not saying it's President Biden's personal personal fault, but certainly he bears some of the blame for not showing the kind of international strength the United States should have shown, which would have been a deterrent.
And another example would be Ukraine. That's another big one.
Absolutely.
Something that's directly his fault would be the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This has not been a good presidency, whether it's domestic policy with ridiculous amounts of inflation and other challenges, or the international problems that we're referring to now. Again, why are Democrats supporting Joe Biden for re-election, even to the point of mounting a write-in campaign, which he can't even be bothered to file and be on the ballot and give them a legitimate candidacy?
Donald Trump was the first former president, I think, to file in person at the New Hampshire State House to run for second term. Is that, I heard that somewhere. Did I get that right?
That I don't know. I know that when he was president, filing for re-election in 2020, then Vice President Pence came and filed for him. I don't know. Well, he wasn't president, of course, in 2016 when he filed. But that's a good point. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I heard that somewhere. But yeah, it's going to get really interesting. All the candidates have been in New Hampshire, I believe. Vermin Supreme was in New Hampshire. Everyone knows Vermin Supreme.
We do.
I don't know what party he is anymore. He's that guy with the boot on his head that wants to give everyone a free pony. Yeah, I just think he's funny.
Well, he's a character, and he adds some color to the primary, and he's as much, well, not as much of a part of the tradition as other aspects of it, but he's certainly become a feature of it.
Yeah, and I remember 2016 when he was running against Trump and Hillary. He did a protest outside of a library in, I think, Concord, where Hillary was doing a book signing, and he had signs with Hillary's face, and he was like mad that she wouldn't support giving free ponies or something like that.
It's a hot button issue, apparently to him at least.
Yeah.
Not to the rest of us, but certainly to him.
And before we get on to Veto Day, inflation, we touched on inflation. How do you think New Hampshire has responded to inflation?
Well, I mean, again, it's the number one cause of inflation is federal spending, the incredible amounts of borrowing and printing money that's going on at the federal level. New Hampshire can't control that. In terms of our own government spending, in terms of our own controlling of what what government's trying to do, or whether it's borrowing money, floating bonds, whatever. We've been very careful. New Hampshire historically has been very careful. We didn't raise any taxes or fees. In fact, we're eliminating some taxes. We've cut the women meals tax by 0.5%. We're phasing out the interest and dividends tax. We've actually moved that up, moved the timetable for phasing that out up. And there'll be discussions. I know there's discussions in the Finance Committee about getting rid of some other taxes, or at least cutting some other taxes. So we've been very fiscally responsible. Our rainy day fund has really been increased dramatically. The revenue stabilization account, I think we call it. I think that's the official name. But basically, it's like a savings account. If we run short, we can withdraw from that, and certainly helps our bond rating. And the better our bond rating, the cheaper it is for New Hampshire to borrow money if we need to. So we're doing everything we can to control spending and address it at the state level. The legislature has also, because of surplus, has been able to help needy families with home heating oil, which has been, another heating cost, which have been astronomical under this administration. Between the lack of an energy policy, the lack of allowing companies to drill and to get more oil and other heating sources. That's driven up the cost, and we, as a legislature, Republicans and Democrats together, have offered heating assistance to eligible families. So we're trying to do everything we possibly can, but it's hard when the federal government's working against you.
Very true. So that's something I'm going to have to, get used to myself. I'll be driving, I hope soon. I'll be going to driver's ed soon, but I don't know when I'll be driving. But gas prices, that's something I'll have to start dealing with. And if we continue to have a weak federal government, it's just going to keep going up.
Well, I certainly believe, and most of us in government believe, that there has to be energy alternatives. Nobody's got any major problems with wind or solar, but that's not an immediate solution, and it's not an exclusive solution. Fossil fuels are here to stay for the foreseeable future, and if we want to transition away from them, that's fine. But electric cars have certainly not been a solution. The cost of them is incredible, and a lot of the energy that generates the electricity is generated by fossil fuels. So there's so much falsehood about those. But to your point, Anthony, gas prices have gone ridiculous under President Trump. They were in the $2, $2.50 range, and they've gone up astronomically. In times they've hit $4. And exploration is certainly a big part of that. And right now we're buying oil from other countries like Venezuela and China and Russia. And the fact of the matter is, we were energy independent when President Trump was in office, and we could be again if this administration had any kind of policy or governmental or a good sense of governing.
So moving on to Veto Day, last episode we talked about some of the things that would be happening on Veto Day, but now we are going to be getting into what happened on Veto Day. So you were there, so I'll let you talk first.
I was there. Yeah, in fact, I brought the House calendar with me. We had 4 vetoes to consider in the New Hampshire House that day. Nothing, well, actually, one of them did get overridden. There were four House-initiated bills that the governor had, if I can get the page open here. There were 4 House bills that the governor had vetoed. There were several Senate bills that the governor had vetoed. Nothing ultimately got overridden in both chambers. But the governor had vetoed House Bill 35. That did not get overridden in the House. He had vetoed that one. If I may, let me get my glasses on.
Go ahead.
It was requiring student identification cards to include the National Eating Disorders Hotline. Again, that did not get overridden. He also had vetoed House Bill 142. There had been tons of emails and other correspondence on that. That was the Burgess Biopower Plant, which is, the North Country really wanted, especially the city of Berlin. And that was a tough vote, but ultimately we decided that because of the subsidies that the state had put into it and the lack of, basically they were always asking for more, had not met their promises. And, you always have to we have to be responsible with taxpayer dollars, and we had to make the tough decision. Enough is enough, and sinking more money into a failing operation was not the best way to go. House Bill 337, which directed the Office of Professional Licensure and Certification to provide notice of public meetings, and an opportunity for comment from the public in creating a new Attorney 2 position. That actually got overridden by the House, but not overridden in the Senate. So that was, there was a momentary victory there, but the Senate did not concur. There might be other efforts to try to bring that issue back through some kind of Senate action. And then finally, House Bill 342, which was relative to lead testing in children, was considered, unnecessary because it was actually being addressed by other laws, and it basically, just created a problem that didn't exist because lead testing already exists in other statutes. So the governor had no vetoes overridden completely, and certainly a good day for him. And there's always a lot of discussion. Any veto, when the governor disagrees with the legislature, we consider his point of view and act accordingly. And some vetoes have been overridden during his 4 terms in office, and most have not. and and certainly none were overridden this time. So.
Do you feel it was a victory for the legislature or for him?
Um, More the governor. The fact is, all of these laws were passed by the House and the Senate, and he said no, and no prevailed. So it was more a victory for the governor. But the fact that we did not meet the numbers that we needed to override the veto indicated we agreed with him. So I mean, the fact that we carefully considered or reconsidered our position and decided not to override. I think when everybody is engaged in giving careful consideration to the issues and to legislation, I think everybody wins, and especially the state of New Hampshire wins.
So do you think any of these issues are going to be coming back in year 2?
Under the rules of the House, if a bill is introduced and is not and fails, it cannot be brought back. If it goes through the entire legislative process. The Senate, some of these bills could come back as Senate bills. Some of these, any one of these 4 House bills could come back on the Senate side, and if it makes it through the Senate, then we could see it again. But we can't see it again as a House bill.
So the session has ended for this year. We're done for 2023, and then we'll be back 2024.
We basically are. I mean, the remaining work of the House is retained bills that we decided in committee we needed more work on. Those bills have to be out of our committee by November 17th. We had 14 in the Health and Human Services and Elderly Affairs Committee. We had 14 of those. We're hoping to vote them out of committee on Monday, this coming Monday, November 6th, 8 of them, and then we'll hopefully resolve the other 6 the following Monday, November 13th. And all committee reports have to be out on retained bills by November 17th, and then we will be done until January. January 3rd is our next House session.
So what's some of the bills that we'll be seeing in 2024? Do you know any?
I have not looked. We call them LSRs. When somebody files a new bill, it's called a legislative service request, LSR. And we have had I don't know if it's historic, but certainly much larger than normal number of bill filings for the second year of the term. Usually it's a lower number, and right now it's over 800, I'm told. Last time I looked, it was 792. It's over 800. Plus, we have 225 retained bills, the things I was just mentioning among the 21 committees, standing committees of the House. So we've got an unusually heavy workload for the second year of the term. I haven't looked in detail at all of the LSRs. I can tell you that among the retained bills in my committee, our committee, a couple of them deal with gender reassignment surgery, which have gathered a lot of attention, have been pretty controversial, as one can imagine. We've looked at system redesigns for Health and Human Services, the main department that we deal with. We're dealing with organ donor legislation and other things. And some of the bills coming up, of course, deal with a lot of them. The Committee on House Education Committee is over 100 pieces of legislation. Many of them deal with the education freedom accounts. So there's going to be a lot of discussion on those taxes, certainly with finance. Some of them are frivolous bills, like how you pronounce, I forget which pronunciation of Concord, our state capital. There's actually a bill in about what should be the proper pronunciation. People can file bills for anything, and unfortunately they do, and they all have to go to committee hearings and be voted out on the floor. So we'll see. But yeah, there's a lot out there.
I'm hoping to attend some of them. I've been allowed to skip some school days to go up to Concord to see how it works.
It's always great to have you join us, Anthony.
Yeah, it's fun for me because this is my sport. Politics is my sport because I'm not very athletic.
And sometimes it can be almost a contact sport.
Yeah. So we are just about out of time. So Wayne, would you like to give any closing remarks?
Oh, again, thanks for having me on. It's great to do these shows. It's great to see you again, Anthony. It's great to have the opportunity to serve in the New Hampshire House of Representatives, representing the town of Londonderry. I've lived there most of my life, almost all of my life. So it's an honor to serve the people of Londonderry, the people of New Hampshire, to deal with these important issues and to do everything we can to meet the challenging times we live in. And, God willing, I'm hoping to likely seek another term next year. As the filing period gets in, I'll make a final decision. But again, it's always an honor to be involved in the public arena.
One thing I'll mention before we go, a lot of the people watching this are Pinkerton students. Wayne is a graduate of Pinkerton.
Yes, I am, class of 1972.
So what are some of the things that have changed? Well, I'm sure a lot has changed since you were there, but
Well,
some big things.
We're running out of time, so I can't mention everything. But certainly the student population has gotten a lot bigger since I left. A lot more buildings, a lot more diverse curriculum, which is great. I've heard that Pinkerton, in addition to being among the best high schools in the state, which it has long had that tradition, it's also the biggest high school in the state, I think. And certainly I'm a proud alumnus of Pinkerton. I was proud to attend my 50th class reunion last year, and it was great to see everybody. And it's changed a lot. Most of the teachers I had, in fact, I think all of them probably at this point are no longer there. But it was a great education, a lot of fun times, certainly rewarding times, and it certainly did a lot to help me, as my life was beginning. And I know it's doing the same for Anthony and his friends. And it's a great school. Keep up the good work. And everybody at Pinkerton, keep up the good work. And thank you.
It's the largest private high school in the country, actually. So you were right.
Wow.
Largest in the state and largest private one in the country.
Wow.
So
that I did not know.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for coming on. I'm Anthony Henry. This has been America's Ask. Thank you for watching.